Hi. Welcome to everybody. My name is Zev Garber. I am going to give a few minutes talk about Torah issue, which is what I like to do in the classroom, which I teach at Los Angeles Valley College. What I have in front of me is a sefer from the Torah by the name of the book is called Bamidbar, or Numbers in English, and more specifically sentences which are found in chapter 15 of the book of Numbers, extending from sentences 37 to sentence number 41. What makes this passage unusual is the following. To begin with, it has the introduction, Vayomer Hashem and Moshe Lemor. The phraseology, God said to Moses, saying, words like Vayomer and he said, or Vaidaber and he spoke, are seen as authentic, authoritative words attributed to Hashem himself. Whether it's directly attributed or associated by tradition is irrelevant. The words are authoritative. And in this particular passage is the famous phrase that Israel is being told, or as the phrase has in the Torah, speaking to the children of Israel and saying to them, Yasu lachem tzitzit. They are to make a fringe on the corners of their garments. The word for the fringe is called in Hebrew a tzitzit. As I see that word spelled in the Hebrew Torah itself, it's spelled this way. The spelling of that word tzitzit, however, as far as Israeli Hebrew goes, is spelling it with two yuds, the tzadi, the yud, the tzadi, the yud, and the tav. It's a very important issue of why Hebrew spelled properly needs to be properly spelled. Otherwise, there can be an addition or subtraction when you use another spelling. In any case, the actual phraseology on the corners of one's garment, one is to have fringes, and secondly, there is to be a blue fringe among the fringes that you wear. Keep that all in mind. A Patil Techelet will be a blue fringe, but there's fringe on the corners on the four tassels of your garment. Now the question is, where does this come in with rabbinic tradition? Rabbinic tradition understands the Torah to be spoken in a written fashion and then interpreted in an oral fashion. Torah Shebektav is what I'm reading from. Admittedly, it's a printed Torah Shebektav. And then the interpretation is the oral Torah, or what's known as the oral teaching. The oral teaching understands the word tzitzit to be spelled with a tzadi yud tav. Why so? Because they play a numerical value on these letters. The letter tzadi in Hebrew, the numerical value is 90. The letter yud in Hebrew, the numerical value is 10. And then it repeats again, 90, and then you have 10 again. And the last letter of the Hebrew alphabet, the tav letter, is said to be the equivalent of 400. If you take the numbers of the word tzitzit with the two yuds, you've got 90 and 10 is 100, 90 and 10 is 200, and then you have the tav, that makes it 600. And if you look at the tassel worn today by Jews as a prayer shawl, or worn as a beggar katan on their bodies every day when they wake up in the morning, you'll notice that there are 8 strings and 5 knots. So 5 knots and 8 strings equals 13. And what you have as a result is 600 with the word tzitzit, and then the 13. And so in oral Torah tradition, there is a reminder every day of 613 commandments. The talit is worn every day, including the days of fasting as well as the day of feasting. And so 613 is the association with that word tzitzit. However, in Professor Abe Garber's class, we don't just depend upon interpretation. We look at the Peshat, the actual reading of the Torah itself, admittedly its printed form, does not have 2 yuds by tzitzit. It lacks the second yud. If it lacks the second yud, then the number would be 590 and would not be 600. And then you add your 13, so you have 603. If you're going to play with the letters themselves, then there are 603 commandments, not 613. So the question is, what do you do with the 10 commandments? Do you delete any 10 commandments? Do you delete the famous Aseret Dibrot, the 10 commandments? Do you play around with this? Do you say there's a mistake? Do you say there's an addition? Or do you do another interpretation? What I find fascinating is interpretation. What is missing is the Yud. The Yud is the only Hebrew letter that is not written on the ground. All letters of Hebrew, all consonants of vowels are written upon the line in which you write. The letter Yud is suspended. The Yud is floating in the air. Second observation, that word Yud in Hebrew, spelled like this, is spelled, pronounced by Yiddish-speaking Jews as the Yid. That Yud, the word or letter, can be pronounced as a Yid. That word Yid in Yiddish is the word Jew. That Yud letter, in my opinion, is the floating Jew. The Jew who does not know what tzitzit is about. The Jew who somehow is still floating around, and the intent, therefore, is to bring him into place. So the reason why the Torah, in my interpretation, has only one Yud and not two, is because there is a reality of a Jew somewhere and everywhere in the world history floating around. And the intent, therefore, is when a fellow Jew does commandments, is not to impress God or to impress another committed Jew, but to impress the Jew who's floating, who sees what you're doing, is attracted by it, and comes into the community again. That's when you write the full spelling of tzitzit. The whole idea is find the Jew who's wandering.